Okay. Yeah, won't forget my story. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My microphone is out of commission today. I apologize, but still here. Okay. We're on Daf Nun Beis Amid Beis, 52b. It's really right on the top. We're just a few words before B'Shem Omer. So we'll just start from 52b, Nun Beis Amid Beis. Before we start, I have a story. Um, the story is from Rav Shalom Deutsch. I've heard of him before, but it's a very interesting story. Um, he says that he went to after he was giving a shiur somewhere, and somebody come over to him and asked him to perhaps he could speak to his son. His son, unfortunately, had gone off the derech, let's put it that way. He was a very good learner, a top bacher in a certain yeshiva. And he left and was now living in Greenwich Village. That's a neighborhood in Manhattan, like a trendy, artsy kind of neighborhood in Manhattan. So he said, I'll speak to him. So he went to the village, as they call it, Greenwich Village in Manhattan, and met this boy. He started speaking to him. He says, "So tell me what happened? Why do you leave yeshiva?" He says, "Because I learned a particular Tana de Belial. Tana de Belial is a brisa, from the Academy of Eliyahu Navi. So this Rabbi Deutsch must deal a lot with kids at risk or whatever, because he knew this Tana de Belial. I think I've heard this once. It didn't make an impression on me. The Tana de Belial says as follows: that every day, 3 times a day, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in Maras Machpelah, they wake up, and Eliezer gives them Nagel Wasser, washes their hands. Didn't say Nagel Wasser, washes their hands, and they daven. They pray. They say Shemona Esrei 3 times a day. Then they go back. So the rabbi said, "Okay." He says, "How could that be? You put anyone in the ground after May of Esrei, 120, they decompose within every amount of time. How could it be after, after 55, 6, whatever, 100 years, no, 3,600 years, 3,700 years? How could it be that they're still come back like that?" So I know I have a lot of questions on the question, whatever, but this boy was troubled by this. He says it can't be. So he wrote the whole thing off. So he told them, "I'm going to come back to you with an answer. I'm going to bring someone who can answer your question." So this Rabbi Deutsch was a little bit puzzled. How is he going to convince this boy? I mean, he could have probably given some other answers, like perhaps it's just a mushal. Perhaps it doesn't mean they physically came back; they're spiritually coming back. I don't know, whatever that means. And you had taken a multiple choice test. They have A, B, C, and D, and D is you don't have enough information. So sometimes you don't have enough information. But this boy unfortunately was troubled by this question. So this Rabbi Deutsch was in a minion factory, as they call them, a shtiblach, as they call it here, in Borough Park, called Shomer Shabbos. It's the name of a minion factory. And they literally around the clock, Marv till I don't know when, 4 in the morning, till Shachris. Um, so he met there Mr. Mandel. Mr. Mandel was involved. Coincidentally, he met Mr. Mandel. He hadn't seen him in a long time. Mr. Mandel was involved in the local Chevra Kadisha, the burial society. And he's told this Rabbi Deutsch, he said, "I have a problem. We have a problem." And in the Woodbridge Cemetery, the Woodbridge community of New Jersey, I don't know what that is exactly, somewhere in New Jersey, there's a cemetery. And because I guess New Jersey has a low water table, whatever the word is, it's a lot of wetlands or whatever they have there. So the 20 of the kvaros, of the graves, were being flooded and lots of water coming to them. They had a problem. They didn't know how to solve the problem.
Yeah, so
What the water comes up high?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. High water table. Sorry. Hello.
The deeper the land.
Ah, sorry. Okay. Sorry. High water table. The water is the water's
line.
yeah.
Yeah. Relative to the sea.
Yeah, like
line. So, yeah.
right.
Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, like southern Florida, like a low water table. Yeah. Okay. High water table. Sorry. Yeah, I'll never get this right. You get it wrong in your youth, that's it. It's locked into your head for life. Okay. Anyway, so the Woodbridge, the cemetery in Woodbridge, the Jewish cemetery, there had a problem that 20 of the quarrels were being flooded. So he suggested he spoke to this Rabbi Deutsch, Rabbi David Cohen, um, in Brooklyn, not David Cohen here. He's also in the story.
Also cool.
Also Cohen. David Cohen's the Rosh Shiva in in Hebron, Shiva. He'll also be in the story. But if David Cohen from Brooklyn is a big posek, he said you can move them, they have to move the graves. He suggested they move them to a cemetery in Lakewood, New Jersey. He told them how to do it and what the halachas are and all that. You mentioned some of them. Um, so they went ahead and they moved them. And in the process of moving them, most of the people they dug up was after 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There was not much to dig up. There's a few bones. They moved whatever they could, give them as much respect as possible. One person they came to, person was complete, whole. Person on the Matseva, it said, Tafshin Nun Hey, 95. That's 30 years ago. It's a recent story. 30 years ago, the person buried. The person was completely whole, intact. Body was intact. Not talking about bones, skin, everything, completely intact. And when they're moving the face was uncovered, and they saw not only weren't trying to look, I suppose, and it's not respectful, but they saw that the face was still moist from the Tara. The person's face was still wet, the Tara. They say the same thing about the Vilna Gaon when they moved him. They moved the Vilna Gaon. People looked or they did. No one. That's a different story. But he was completely intact, like he'd been buried yesterday, literally. Very unusual. Very, very unusual. So this person was very, very curious. So he asked Rav David Cohen's son, David Cohen of Brooklyn's son, Ami Cohen, Rabbi Ami Cohen, who was very well connected. He said, "Let me try to find out who this person was." So he found out, and I think it was I think Rav Ami Cohen says he found a picture of this person. His name they found from the grave, Yosef ben whatever Cohen. Yossi Cohen was his name. Yossi Cohen, who passed away in 95. Yossi Cohen was I think it was Rav Ami Cohen's wedding. There's a picture with him. There's a picture of this Yossi Cohen at his wedding. And he says, "Could you tell me a little bit about him?" He says, "Yeah, I tell you about him. He was a very regular person. He was the Baal Koreh. He was the one who read the Torah in Chayim Berlin, Yeshiva Chayim Berlin. And he was, by profession, he was a computer programmer. He wasn't a rabbi. But he was whatever he did quietly. He did B'tzina, he did it, privately without people knowing. He did a tremendous amount of chesed. Always there for everyone else, but very quietly. And he was the Baal Koreh, and he was the Baal Koreh in Chayim Berlin, and he passed away from his final illness in 1995. That's all I can tell you about him. That's pretty amazing. It's a regular person. This is this type of thing you see only from great, 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 great tzaddikim. This regular person had such a thing. So when this happened, uh, so this Rabbi Deutsch was very excited about this, and he asked the Chaver Kadisha to come with him. He said, "Can you come with me? I want someone you want to talk to in the Greenwich Village." So he took them with him to Greenwich Village in Manhattan, and they met this boy. He says, "I know you have questions on the story that how could Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov come back every day and stand up and be fully alive when a person decomposes in the grave? Please tell their story to this young man." He told the story of how Yossi Cohen, when they dug up Yossi Cohen, it was completely as if the day had been buried. Literally, his face was still moist from the Tara, unbelievable. So the boy was in shock, but was impressed by it. He thought it over, and he eventually came back. Came back to Judaism. Came back. I don't know exactly what happened in the end, but he came back. And, so the author of the story, Rabbi Deutsch, the teller of the story, said that Rav Yossi Cohen, tzaddikim, afilu misoseim nikrachayim, and they're greater in their death than their life. Tzaddikim was able to be makarev, bring someone back to Judaism after his passing away, 30 years after he passed away. Interestingly, but a lot of interesting messages from the story. I mean, the most poignant one, I think, is that you never know that this Rabbi Deutsch, who was so concerned about someone else, Hashem sent all the messages he needed to help someone else out. I think and you also see how someone can be troubled by something. You never know how something can trouble someone or what's going on with somebody. But the most poignant message, I think, is the fact that you never know who you're meeting. This is a regular person, a regular job, 9 to 5 kind of person. I'm sure he learned Torah. He was Very recent, yeah. Didn't say what year, but he said 30 years in 1995, so it's 2025. So you never know you're meeting. You never know. Like this person you meet could be very great, you never know. And in Shemayim, they have a different yardstick or meter stick, whatever they say, um, for measuring who's great and what's great. So you never know. You meet someone, this person can be the greatest tzaddik in the world. This person could come out from the grave looking like this. Yeah, unbelievable. Very, very few tzaddikim are zocha to such things. But you never know. I only heard one other case of somebody like this. It was a story from Rabbi Frand, Rabbi Frand, says he was involved in a case where a woman whose father, they had to reinter him. Same thing happened. He was completely whole. They dug him up many years. It's from South Africa, actually. The only reason Rabbi Frand could come up with to discover why this person was a regular Jew, I don't think he was even fully religious. He was traditional Jew. But they said that the local workers, the South African workers, the not black workers, whatever the people of color, whatever the politically correct word is today, I don't know. Out of things a little bit. They would come and all the other salesmen, he had like a store, they sold like dry goods or whatever. They would all give them like great prices. There's only like X number of rand the kilo or whatever, but they would have scales that were inaccurate. This fellow, he kept his scales fully accurate all the time. So, I never know what mitzvah or what thing they come with. Morning. Morning. All time. Morning. Morning. So you never know. Whoever you meet could be the greatest at tzaddikim. Hard to say. We should treat everyone as such. You never know. Okay. That's the story. Well, let's start with the Gemara. We're up to what your gentlemen were discussing before about redeeming captives. But to what extent do we pay? Let's have a drink. Okay. So
This group of 10 was very, very high, and there was no way they could blame themselves.
I guess not. I don't know. I don't know
They would want to move. I thought that was quite
I guess so. 2024. Yeah. It was not a usual thing. They didn't want to do it. So they couldn't solve the problem normally. No. Don't ask me why. I don't even know what's high and low water tables. So anyway, so we're up to the Gemara on top of Nun Beis and Beis 52b, and the Gemara is discussing. This is what Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says. We're discussing what are the limits of redeeming a wife. What is the minimum requirement, so to speak? Obviously, you should redeem your wife no matter what, and it's society's requirement under. We're not the topic of the discussion, but we do mention something. To what extent do you redeem captives? Then we're going to discuss refuah, the requirement for a husband to heal his wife, and then we're going to discuss the Mishnah, which talks about all the tonight, some of the Tanai Ksuba, not all of them, the stipulations in the Ksuba, particularly the fact that the sons, even if there's sons from other wives, those sons get the Ksuba and the dowry, etc. Okay, so let's discuss this. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer, that's from the previous page. It says, "Ein podin es hashfuyin yoser al kamei demehen." We don't redeem captives. This is specifically referring to the case. The context here is referring about a man redeeming his wife, but it's broader than that. To any captives, we have that principle. Ein podin es hashfuyin yoser al kamei demehen ibnei tikun olam. As Rashi we quoted yesterday says, so they don't become accustomed to asking to up the ante. Gilu al demand. So they don't start asking whatever they want. If they know that the Jews will redeem their captives for 4 times the going rate, in Mexico it's more of a monetary captive kind of situation. In Mexico, they'll only go after the Jews, God forbid. So they know that they're worth money, and they're willing to pay money. So we don't do that. You only redeem for the value, not more than the value. So what's the implication of that? The implication is only the value and not more. So the Gemara says, "Ha b'chedemeyan podin, afagav the brokana yoser al ksuvasa." We say that that we only we were able to redeem her up to her value, whatever Rashi, we had a discussion, Rashi or others, what that means. Rashi said it means the value on the slave market. So the Miri said her chashivas, her importance, whatever. We don't redeem her for more than her value. But the implication is that habechademei and podim then implies that her value is, let's say her value is 400 zuz, afagav the berkana yoser al ksuvasa. Even if her redemption amount, the 400, is worth more than a ksuva, which is only 200. That's what seems to be implying from Rishon ben Gamliel. Redeemer always up to her value, even if it's more than the value of her ksuva. For a minhi, I'll ask you a stira, ask you a contradiction from a different place. Nishbis v'hayu mevakshmi meno ada sara b'ksuva. The Tanakam over there, that Brisa says, if she's redeemed, a nishbis, she's captive, and they are demanding from us 10 times the value of her ksuva. Pam rishona, the first time they do this, poda, we redeem her. Mikan ve'elech, from then on, and the other time, ratza poda, ratza ena poda. Tanakama says then you don't have to, but you can. The first time you redeem her up to 10 times the value of her ksuba, which is either 2,000 or 1,000 zuz. I'm not sure if it includes the yeah. That's how much you would give. So Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, this is where the contradiction comes in. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, im haya perkona ksuvasa, if the redemption costs, like the amount it costs to redeem her, is the same amount as her ksuva or less, poda, then you can redeem her. Im lav, eno poda. If not, then you don't redeem her. So the first thing we said was that in this brisa, the first brisa we said that you only redeem her up to her value. In the second brisa, the second place says, according to Rishon ben Gamliel, you redeem her, but only to the value of her ksuva. That's not necessarily the same thing. She could be valued, I don't put a value on the slave market, according to Rashi, at 400 zuz. That's not the same as her ksuva, or it could be the opposite. Her value is only at 100 zuz. She's very old or something, whatever the case. So they're not parallel to each other. So how do these two opinions coexist? Is the maximum for redemption of a wife up to her value, or up to, as according to Shimon Gamliel, or up to the value of her ksuva? So what do we say? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel trey kule isla. He holds of both kulas, so that there's two maximums that exist, that coexist, so to speak. It's either up to, but not either one is the maximum, and not the lesser of the two. Either up to the ksuva or up to her value, which are the lesser of the two. It's two kulas. As Rashi says, lo ser al damash roya limacher b'shuk. Rashi clearly says it's like the slave market. You don't go above that value, and below yoser al ksubasa, and also not over ksuba. Both minimums. So not more than 200 or 100 zuz, and not more than her slave value. Whatever is less. That's the minimum. You can do more, presumably. But I shouldn't say that, because there's a concept that we don't redeem captives for more than their values. That's a general, not topic for today, but there is such a topic in the story of Rav Meir Rottenberg, who was captured by whoever it was, evil Germans, I think. Whoever it was.
Told them not to.
Yeah. So they wanted to be po to him. He was more because he's an exception to the rule. He's like the Gadol Ador, but he insisted not. Because he said this is going to become a pattern. Presumably he was right. They didn't do it afterwards. It wasn't redeemed. Some fellow redeemed him later. His body. They redeemed his body. Wilhelm, I think his name was, or something like that. Yeah, many years after. Yeah.
When evaluating the woman, just out of curiosity, let's say she's captured, held for 3 years. So money is approved to redeem her. Is her value the value of before she was kidnapped, or the value 3 years after that?
I don't know.
Well, she would be worth less,
Presumably.
I would think,
Let's see.
after her capture.
I guess so. I don't know. They don't say that. Well, that's a good question. I don't know. The presumption, the Mishnah, the Brisa, this whole sugya seems to assume it happens relatively quickly. It's not something you want to I imagine that there's always, we discussed this before. I think that before that the captive women are doing things, they're cooking, they're providing, armaments for these guys. They want to stay alive. It's not a situation you want to keep the women in.
Is the opposite social. Husband gets kidnapped? Does the wife have a fee to redeem her husband?
I didn't see such a thing. It's the husband's money, so I assume he'd want to use it. He's the rightful, he would use his assets to do so.
Unless the wife does leave one relation to the safe.
Right. Right.
It's in her best interest. If the husband doesn't come back, she collects.
Oh, her son's correct, actually.
The Kesuvos
She's not grabbing of her.
the Kesuvos is usual, right? It's seriously,
Right.
traditionally,
Right.
women were captured.
Right,
And that's why is it written in the Kesuvos as a condition?
right,
That's the show that the wife is taken, you have to ransom her.
right,
The other way around is not provided.
right, right.
It's silly, it can be anybody, doesn't matter, it does happen. But someone is kidnapped, and the community at large is asked to raise money to try and get the person out,
Right,
whatever sex they are,
right. It's usually
or wherever they are.
very hard to, yeah. It's usually some high fee, and it's not within the means of most people to pay these fees that they charge.
He has multiple wives. So she said, okay, this wife is kidnapped. I've got another 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the Gemara. It talks about if a woman gets sick, what is the responsibility of the husband to heal her, to provide for the healing process? So Loksa Chayav L'Refosa. If she is if she becomes sick, I think the Rifo says that's talking about she didn't do anything careless. Laksa is stricken by an illness. In any case, Tanara Bana. It's about halfway down the narrow lines. Right at the beginning, Tanara Bana. Almana Nizonis Miznichsa Yisomin. A widow, after her husband passed away, she gets fed from the properties, the possessions of the orphans. They collect and they're requiring to feed her. The tzricha refua areik mizonos, and her medical needs are the equivalent to her mizonos. It's the same thing. That's part of the package. Providing food for her also includes providing medical needs for her. But B'Shimon Gamliel Omer, B'Shimon Ben Gamliel qualifies this. Refua sheish la kitzva nisrapas mi'aksuvasa. If there is like a set amount, if you can go and you can calculate the amount, like go to a doctor and he can calculate this is the exact amount, this is the amount that's necessary for her to be healed. This is going to cost the whole procedure. You need some surgery or something. They give you a bill. They give you an estimate beforehand. This is what it's going to cost, how many days in the hospital, whatever. You know how much it's going to be. So in that case, Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Refuah sheish l'kitzvah has a defined amount. Nisrapes miksuvasa. She gets healed from her own ksuva, from her that 200 zuz. It comes out from that. However, she'ein lo kitzvah. It's an ongoing, non-specified, ongoing treatment that's necessary. Hareik mizonos. That is like mizonos. That's like food, and that the orphans of the father have to pay out from the estate, from what they own, what they now in their possession. Okay.
A widow gets 200 or 100?
No, it depends when she got married. If she was married as a basula, as a virgin, she would get 200. Otherwise, she would only get 100.
Right.
So Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Asu hakazas dam be'eretz Yisrael krafuash ein la kisva." Rabbi Yochanan says they made bloodletting in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, it's considered like a refuah that doesn't have a set amount. Apparently, in the old days, used to, not so old, even George Washington, first president of the United States, during his final illness, you want to call it, they used a lot of leeches, I guess that's what they used, to let blood. It was too much, apparently. That's what they told me in school. But it wasn't so long ago. That was in the late 1700s. That was, 200 and whatever, 250 years ago. It wasn't so long ago. That was a standard practice for medicine, using bloodletting. So in Eretz Yisrael, they used to do it like a regular thing. Other places, they used to do it less regularly. So a person who was sick had this ongoing treatment of bloodletting. So in Eretz Yisrael, it was considered a ongoing treatment, not a specific set amount that the doctor could give you a one-time bill for it and pay for the ksuba. Rather, it was an ongoing treatment. So in Eretz Yisrael, bloodletting as a procedure for healing was considered a long-term healing process or medical process, whatever. And so there would come out from the estate of what the orphans would have, rather than when it wouldn't come out of ksuba. Okay, so now I have an interesting story here about Rav Yochanan and relating to orphans, the deceased, the wife, and how they dealt with healing and paying for the healing. Okay, so second to last narrow line. Kreva de Rav Yochanan, the relative of Rav Yochanan, Havalu Isas Abba, they're the wife of their father. It means like a stepmother, presumably, seems to be. A stepmother. So this is the mother, this is the wife of their father, and they're required to provide for her, even her medical. But it's not their mother. If they're using up a lot of the funds, they would not be so happy. So the relatives of Rav Yochanan had a mother of their father, the Havas Tzriche Refuah Kol Yom, who needed some medical intervention on a daily basis. So, and that was draining their estate. So also they came to Rav Yochanan for some advice. So Amar Lahu, he said to them, Izlu kotu le'midi rofe. Go in and get a doctor to, package a deal, make a one-time payment, come up with a one-time payment for this ongoing treatment. So you transfer it from being a ongoing treatment to a one-time thing. It's a one-time thing, it comes out of her ksuba. If you can sort of concretize, you can define it as and come up with a one bill for the whole package, for the whole treatment. So then that would come out of ksuba. So saying that's what you should do. Find a doctor who would give you a fee for give you a estimate, medical estimate, whatever, for all the costs, and then so then she's required to pay for, not you. Some good advice. However, Rav Yochanan said about himself, Asinu atzmenu korachei dayanim. Wait a second. We made ourselves like orach din, it's kind of like a lawyer, like those who advise people on how to handle legal cases. So that's not so nice, because in Pirkei Avos it says you shouldn't be like an orach din. You should position yourself in such a way to help people, wiggle their way out of things such as these. So the Gemara asks, wait a second. Originally, Rav Yochanan was happy to give them this advice, and then afterwards he regretted giving this advice. So which one is it? Is he happy to be like an orach din, someone who is telling them how to wiggle out of the law, or not? Which one is it? So the Gemara says, Mikara, my savar, besof my savar. Originally, what did he think? And the end, what did he think? So the Gemara says, Mikara savar or mibisarcha lo tisale. There's a pasuk in Yeshai. Is it Yeshai? What's this pasuk? Yes, in Yeshai. Mibisarcha lo tisale. Don't blind yourself from your own flesh. I mean, from your own family, from your own relatives. You shouldn't turn a blind eye. You could be concerned for them. You should look out for them. So he said that's what I should do, even if it's sort of twisting the law, not twisting the law. If it's finding a way to wiggle out of the law, I have to give them the best advice possible. Because they're my own relatives. I have to be extra concerned for them. That's what he initially thought. So he gave them that advice. Well, Basov Savar Adam Chashav Shiny, and then he thought, wait a second, I'm a prominent person. Yochanan was the Gadol Ador. You can't be acting like this, because even though for your own family there is justification to do this, but other people might learn from it and use it in all sorts of, even when it's not your family, even ways it's not so appropriate. So you have to be extra careful, even though from the strict letter of the law, it's appropriate for what he did. But for a person of his stature, people would wrongly learn from him to apply it to cases where it shouldn't be used, this type of thing. I'm non-family, it's not appropriate, maybe for money or whatever. So that's why. Anyway, yeah.
I always understood we had a principle. Someone's going to dispute. That he's going to make the right decision.
Correct.
Regardless of what evidence the facts are told you, he has to discern what the element is. But what we're learning here in that situation, that if someone doesn't get the right advice, it's not told the right, the right instances in secular we call that precedent.
Right.
Yeah, you don't pick up the right precedent for the judge.
Okay.
Then you're gonna lose. that doesn't ring with this other principle. But it could be that the guy's making a mistake. How can you explain that?
Well, the right. So the wasn't that's a good question. It's more of a acrony, like a principle question in principle, how things work in the world. If if the judge is going to make the correct decisions, what do we need his input for? What's the difference? What advice you give them? Hashem's going to send the right way. Why is it so necessary? I don't know the exact way Hashem works. Why do we do Hashtadlus anyway? If Hashem's going to do it needs to come to us anyway. I guess he was doing the Hashtadlus that was necessary for the judge to make Hashem's decision come true. That these children should stop paying the medical bills. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. It's a complex thing, understanding how Hashtadlus interacts with.
No, I hear.
It's a difficult
It's
question.
not that. Depending on the wrong decision. It's what Hashem wants in this case, that this person shouldn't have the information to
Right.
either be liable or benefit, depending which there are plenty of other defending.
Right.
That's the case may be.
Right. Correct.
I just know from my experience that the only people benefit from litigation are the lawyers.
Yeah. Well, even lawyers need to make a living, right? Yeah.
Proceedings don't mean.
Right.
Right. So
Right. Yeah.
that's why they should avoid litigation.
Right. Avoid that. Yeah.
Sometimes that's no choice.
Yeah. I read an article about a very wealthy fellow who passed away. And one of the big praises they said about him was that he never ended up in Besdin. This is a guy with a lot of business concerns, with a lot of other Jews. So you'd presume at some point over his career he would end up but he never went to Besdin. That's like a big praise for him.
That's it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'll say that about that.
I know. It's a shame we should all, going forward, avoid these issues. Okay, so let's go further. Okay. So let's up to the Mishnah. Sagdei legatana. Lo kasavla, if we did not write in the Ksuva, banin dichrin, tihavu laichi minai, inun yarson kasab ksuvech, yaser al chol kehen, im achuhon. If you don't write the following Ksuva, that my male offspring, it's literally male sons, but it's the same thing, male offsprings that I have from you, this is writing to his wife, the male offsprings that I come from you, your sons, your biological sons that we have together, they'll inherit the money of your ksuva, and also means the dowry too, and the tosefes ksuva, more so than their share with their non-biological brothers, their half-brothers. In other words, if the chayev shutnai besdin, and he still, even if he doesn't write that in the ksuva, he's still bound by that because that is the stipulation of the ksuva that the bezdin, Hedron, whoever, that the chachamim put a takana. Let me explain that. This is what we call ksuvas ban and dichrin. There's a principle that when a father they marry, they have children. If it's one wife, it's not relevant because the sons inherit everything and there's nothing to talk about. The sons are all the sons of the mother, and the sons are all the sons of the father. They inherit everything, and everything goes to the mother's sons. They're all the mother and the father's sons. Fine. But if the father has two wives, and he gives wife A, it's called Rachel, he gives her a ksuva, she gets a ksuva, and she also has a dowry, etc., from her father. So one of the conditions of the ksuva is that when the wife passed away, and then the father passed away, the sons, both from this mother and from the other mother, would equally inherit, firstborns, whatever, they would equally inherit all the possessions. Now, one of the stipulations of the ksuva is that the amount of the ksuva is out of that calculation for both wives, right? I guess if they both have 200, it's equal, but if they have additional tosefes, if there's in dunya, it also gets factored in. Though that amount and the dowry and the ksuva first go directly to the woman's biological children. That first gets done, and then they start divvying up the rest of the inheritance. That's called ksuva span and dichrin, ksuva of the male sons.
How's it divided?
like let's say that two wives, let's say the person leaves over 100,000 shekel, right? And the dowry of that dowry is two wives, and of the dowry and the ksuva, let's say each of them come in with one comes in with 500 shekel, one is 600 shekel worth of ksuva and dowry and tosefes ksuva. So first, her sons, let's say there's four sons, two are from this wife, two from that wife. These sons from Rachel first take out their 500 for the dowry and the ksuva of their mother, and these take out the dowry 600 from their ksuva and their mother. Then the remaining, I have 900 minus 100,000, so whatever the amount, 990, whatever, 98,900, whatever the number is. That remaining amount, then they divide up. That's the way it works. The reason this is done, one of the reasons it's done, we'll see in the Gemara, is that if we want to make sure the father gives his daughter a nice dowry, he's worried, I'm going to give a nice dowry. My daughter is going to pass away at some point. The son-in-law is going to inherit it, and then he's going to die, and it's going to go to grandchildren are not mine. They're going to not my daughter's kids, the mother daughter, his co-wife's kids. He doesn't want that. To make sure it stays in the family, the dowry gets cast down to his descendants, also for the ksuba, but so this dowry, he gives the dowry to his daughter, and that dowry is guaranteed to go to her biological children this way. So he has first dibs on it. Also applies to ksuba. That's ksuba as ban and dichrin. That's a stipulation that the rabbis put in called ksuba as ban and dichrin. That the ksuba of male sons, literally. So that's one. Even if you don't write it in, it's a takana of the chachamim. You're obligated by it whether you wrote it in the ksuba or not. We don't actually write all these words in the ksuba, at least in Ashkenazi ksuba. I don't know, but we have mentioned. So there's a machlokas. There's a discussion. Machlokas. The Rush brings down whether this principle applies to it or not, ksuba ban and dichrin or not. But anyway, so I don't know. They write in ksuba. Huh? Next, third line in the Mishnah, second full line, and then banin nukvin, which means literally means female sons, but it means female descendants. My daughters, dihavin lechi minai, the daughters you have from me, yahavin yasvin bebesi umitzanan min nechasi. They will stay in after he passes away. He says they can stay in the house and they get fed ad de tilakon leguvrayin, until that they are taken by men, until they get married. It's a question that means Erisin or Nasuin is also, it's a different girsa. Some cases they become Bogeras. But at some point, when they become either married or older, they could stay in the house after their father passed away, and they get fed from the estate up until that point. Let's just say, for argument, the literal interpretation, until they get married. Chayev, even if he doesn't write that in the ksuva, he's still required after his death, from his state, his daughters get housed in his house and fed. He's still chayav to do that if he doesn't write it. Shu Tanai Bezdin. So it's a stipulation of the Bezdin. It's a takon of the Chachamim. Next, number 3. Ad tehe yasva bebesi mitzana minechasi kol yemei megar or megad whatever al munasech bebesi. One other stipulation is that after he passes away, she could stay in his house. She could stay in his house and gets fed from his possessions all the days of her widowhood. We'll discuss that further in the Gemara. In his house. He's chayiv to that, shu tanai bezdin. Even though he's required to do that, after he passed away, she's allowed to stay in the house, in his house, and be fed as long as we'll see as long, but all the days of her widowhood. Okay, so the first one was that the sons inherit the ksuva and the dowry of their biological mother. And the second was that daughters get fed and stay in the father's house until they get married. So let's leave it at that until we get the Gemara to discuss further. And the wife, the widow, gets to stay in the house and gets fed from the estate all the days of her widowhood. We'll discuss that further too. And those are stipulations. You mean you don't write it in the ksuva, you are bound by it because it's a takana of bezdin. Okay, so that last point that they could stay in, that she could stay in the house and get fed as long as she wants, we're going to discuss in the Mishnah. Kach hayu anshe Yerushalayim kosvin. So that last point, that's how the men of Yerushalayim, the custom in Yerushalayim was to write. Anshe Galil, people who lived in Galilee up north, hayu kosvin kan Yerushalayim. They also write that. They wrote that. A woman can stay in the house and get fed as long as she wants and get the ksuba. We'll see there is a limit on it, like 25 years if she doesn't to get the ksuba. Well, that's about the ksuba. We'll talk about that later. Anshe Yehuda hayu kosvin anshe yirtzu hayarshin. the Anshe Yehuda, in Yehuda, they had a custom that the ball was in their court, so to speak. It was the option of the Yisomim, of the sons who inherit the father. They could either let her stay there, or they could say, here, take your ksuva, and then you have to leave, and we don't feed you anymore. According to the people in Galil, in Yerushalayim, the custom was that it was her choice. She can stay there as long as she wants, or she can come collect her ksuba. In Yehuda, in the era of Yehuda, they said no, it's the orphan's decision. They could say, we're ready to pay you, so you have to leave. In Yerushalayim Galil, it's her choice when she wants to stay or when she wants to leave. Lafichach in Yehuda, imratzu yarshin nosen laksuva. In Yehuda, therefore, the yarshin, the inheritors, the sons, they can give her a ksuva, uposhru nosa. Then they sort of done with her. Then she can go on her way. She can't stay in the house anymore. She doesn't get fed. She has her ksuva, and she goes on. Okay. So Amar Rav Yochanan, says the Gemara. Amar Rav Yochanan mishum Rav Shimon ben Yochai. Yochanan said the name of the Tana, Rav Shimon ben Yochai. Yeah, where is it? Here. Why was this takana made that the sons, the biological sons of the mother, inherit her ksuva and inherit her dowry, etc.? Why we have this ksuva banadikrin? In order that the father, who's marrying off his daughter, will give her respectable dowry, which is a separate takana, because he wants to make sure, just like he gives money to his sons, provides for his sons, he wants to make sure he gives a respectable dowry for his daughters. So we put this takana in place. We said that the father gives the money to his daughter as a dowry. The daughter dies, and then the husband eventually dies. So that money, the father, the grandfather, who doesn't want the money going to grandchildren, not his. So the mother, her biological sons exclusively get the dowry. That's what the purpose of the takana. So the father, the grandfather, well, the father who's marrying off the daughter and gets the dowry will want to give a respectable dowry because he knows that's going to stay in the family. Okay. So the Gemara asks, midi the Rahman Amar bara leros barta lo teros. Is there such a situation that the Torah says, according to the Torah, the sons exclusively inherit the father? The Rahmana bra yaros, so the son inherits, the daughter does inherit. Also the rabbis come along, mesachni the teros barta, and they come along. They say the daughter inherits. That the daughter inherits. The Miri explains this, that it's talking about the dowry, that the dowry technically belongs to the sons, all the sons exclusively, but that the daughter inherits it when the husband passed away. Not herself inherits; she inherits that goes exclusively to her sons. So, is it such a concept that we can move around inheritance like that? The inheritance is the equal property of all the sons. How can we jump in and say that it goes to the daughters like that, through the daughter to her descendants? So we say hanami dioraisa. The concept of dowry, that the daughter gets a dowry, is also equally dioraisa. Now we're going to quote a pasuk from Yirmiyahu, which is really Nevi'im, but we call it dioraisa for some reason. Hanami dioraisa. This is also from the Torah, that the daughters get a dowry. Tichsiv, Yirmiyahu said to the Jewish people, Chu nashim, take for yourselves wives, v'lidu banim banos, and have sons and daughters. Uchu lebnechem, and take for your sons nashim, take for them wives, get wives for your sons, so they can have children as well. So we can have the future of Klal Yisrael. Les b'nosechem, and for your daughters tenu lanashim, give to sons. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to analyze that pasuk. Bishlama, I understand goes well. Banim biyadei kaime. The sons, it's within their hands to have a wife chosen, because that's what men do. Men go and pursue their wife, and they choose a wife. Elabante, but your daughters, mikaiman biyadei. Is it within your hands, within your power, to choose a husband for them? The husband chooses the wife. He goes and tries to find a wife. How are you getting a husband for your wife? The husband comes and chooses the wife. Hakamash Malan, so therefore, the Gemara says the pasuk is coming to teach you, the nilbisha, the nichsa, v'nasibla. You should dress her up and adorn her, jewelry, etc., makeup, all that stuff, v'nasibla, and give her a respectable dowry for her. That's what the pasuk is implying, a respectable dowry. Nasibla midi, sorry, and give her something respectable dowry. Kihecha de kavti alav asu v'nasibla. In other words, someone should want to come and marry her. In other words, make her make her look attractive and be respectable and have stature that someone would want to come marry her. So obviously you're not choosing the husband, but you're putting her in a situation where someone would want to choose her. But what do we see from this? We see from this that there's a concept that Yirmiyahu is telling them. How do you do that? You give the daughter a dowry. So we see from the Psukim, Yirmiyahu, Navi, whatever, that there's a concept that you're supposed to give the dowry as well. So even though the Torah says exclusively that sons inherit, but the concept of a dowry coming from the father to the daughter and then down to her sons specifically is a Torah concept. So it's not in contradiction to the Torah. Though we'll see soon that this concept of the sons inheriting the dowry only exists if you can fulfill the mitzvah of the Torah to divide up money among the sons equally. There's something else besides the dowry and the ksuva, but we'll get to that momentarily. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 lines on the bottom. Va'ad kama, how much, up until how much are you supposed to give as a respectable dowry? Abai v'Rabba, the Amri Tarvayu, both Abai and Rabba say, ad li'isur nichsi, until 10th of your possession, 10th of your portfolio, assets, whatever you want to call it. That's how much you should give for your daughter. That's how much you should give. It's very important to give a dowry, respectable dowry to one's daughter. So the Gemara asks, sorry, the rest. Okay, so we're going to get to that soon. Ve'ema de'av li'aros, the baal lo le'ros. Ve'ema de'av li'aros, the baal lo le'ros. So the Gemara asks, let's say that the father should bring the boy should inherit the father, not the husband. In other words, when the Kesuvos ban and dikrin, the sons, the grandson, the mother, when the father, when the husband, the wife passed away, and then the husband passed away. So the sons get their mother's ksuva and their dowry as well. So we said the reason for that was to make sure that the grandfather of these boys would want to give a nice dowry because he knows that his biological grandsons will be inheriting it. So that's a reason why the son should inherit from the father, from the grandfather, but from the husband, from their father. Why are they getting the ksuva? What's the motivation behind that? There's no reason. We saw why the dowry should come to them to ensure that the grandfather gives the dowry. The ksuva coming to them. What's the reason for that? Why would they want to do that? Why is that important? So we say the So just say that for the father, the grandfather, the dowry they should inherit in this Kesuvos ban and dikrin. That should go exclusively to them. The baal lo le'ros, but for the ksuva itself, they should inherit. Why is that important? So the Gemara says, in Cain, if they would not get the ksuva and only get the dowry, av nami nimna v'lo kasa, then the father would not ride it. He's saying, wait a second, I'm going the extra mile, but the father is not, but his son-in-law is not. That the ksuva doesn't get inherited by my grandchildren, but I'm going the extra mile and giving my dowry to this dowry that's going to come to my grandson. So why am I going the extra mile? The father's not going the extra mile. It's one way of looking at it. So the imkain ab nami nimna v'lo kasa. Okay, so the ema. So say echa de kasav av lichtov baal. If the whole reason is just to make sure the father the grandfather is motivated, father of the girl is motivated to give the possession, where the father gives a dowry, he's supposed to give a dowry, where he writes a dowry, therefore the father would write the ksuva to these biological children of his wife. If the father doesn't write the dowry, which he's supposed to, then then the father shouldn't have to specifically give the wife's ksuva to her biological sons, because then we don't need to encourage the father. Samara says low plug. There's a low plug. We made it across the board rule. No, always the sons, the grandsons get the grandfather's dowry gave to their mother, and he gets the mother's ksuva, their biological mother's ksuva. So low plug rabbanim. The rabbanim didn't make a distinction. So bas bein habanim. What about the following case? Last words on the line there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up. Bas bein habanim. What about if one mother only has one daughter, 3 daughters, but one daughter, and the other mother has sons, right? So then the sons are the exclusive ones to inherit her. So then, really, we should say we have the same reasoning. Then that daughter, should get the dowry of her grandfather, because then's the motivation. That's the whole motivation, that the grandfather should assure that his money, his dowry, went to his grandchildren. But that's not the case here. So bas bein abanim nami teros. We should also, that those daughters, when it's one daughter from one mother, that one daughter should get the dowry of her biological mother, because that's the whole reason for the enactment. But she doesn't. So we say kanachala shavyuha rabbana. No, the Chazal, they enacted the Kesuvos banan dichrin just like any other Yerusha that only gets collected from the sons. In case it's only a daughter, it doesn't go to the daughter. It works from the same principle, the same guidelines as Yerusha, as inheritance. So the Gemara asks, bas bein abanos teros. Okay, so what happens if you have one mother only has, let's say, one daughter, and the other mother had only daughters? From both benot slavchad, only daughters, the daughters inherit. So we should say there too. Now everyone's inheriting. This daughter's inheriting too. She should get Kesuvos banan dichrin. She should get her mother's dowry exclusively. Why not? Bas ben abanim nami tiros. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Bas bein abanos tiros. So they said lo plug rabbanon. Rabbanon also didn't make a rule. They said that no, only sons get Kesuvos banan dichrin. You have to be a son to get the dowry of your mother. That's the halakha. The Gemara asks, the tigbi mitatali. So let them collect. If it's so important that the sons get their Kesuvos banan dichrin, that they inherit their mother's suba and their mother's dowry, so important, let them collect it even from metaltali, even from movable objects. Why is it? Okay, have a great day. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the tea. So then, tigbi metaltali, we should make the rule that they can even collect her from movable objects. If it's so important that the grandsons get the dowry, it goes exclusively to them through their biological mother. So how can we limit that collection from land, as you said before? They should collect it from metaltali, from movable objects. So ksuva shavyuha rabbana. Rabbanan made the Kesuvos banan dichrin, equated it to regular ksuva. Ksuva, we don't pass like that. Ksuva, according to the Gemara, comes out that's only collected from land. So just like ksuva is only collected from land, so is the Kesuvos banan dichrin, the grandson getting the dowry and the ksuva. So the Gemara asks, so titrof mi mishabde. If it's like a ksuva, so then they should be able to collect this Kesuvos banan dichrin even from shibudim, even from things that their father had sold prior to the inheritance. They should be able to collect that, not only from things that are mechurarin, from things that are free, that he's in possession of when he passed away. So yarsun tnan. The Mishnah said that Kesuvos banan dichrin is inherited. It's like the laws of inheritance. And just like inheritance only could be collected from free things, not from things that the father had sold prior to his passing, it has to be things that he's in possession of. Let's maybe do a little bit more. Moser dinar. So there's a principle I mentioned briefly before, that in order for them to get Kesuvos banan dichrin, their biological mother's dowry and their ksuva, there has to be something else. These boys are getting their mother's dowry and the ksuva, and these boys are getting their mother's dowry and ksuva, boys from different mothers. In order to do that, we still have to be able to fulfill the law of the Torah. The law of Torah is that the sons divide up evenly. There has to be at least something left over, dinar, that they're able to divide up, according to the Torah. Once the Torah division is fulfilled, we know that it's being taken care of, so then the brothers are able to collect from their mothers. So if it's so important that the brothers get, they should be able to collect with that pattern. They all get their mother's dowry and ksuba, even if there isn't a dinar left over for them to split. So we say, if there's no official dowry that they can, if there's not enough left, not talking about order, just the sons, they get 500, they get 600. There's nothing left after that, after collecting their mother's dowries and ksuba, and there's nothing to divide up equally and fulfill the Torah. You have to have something besides the dowries and ksuba to divide up, to fulfill the law of the Torah of equally dividing among the sons. Once you equally have enough to divide equally among the sons, then you can go, and then you could do this Kesuvos banan dichrin thing. Okay, I guess we'll hold it here. The last 3 lines is a lead into tomorrow anyway, and it talks about a story of Rav Papa and giving dowry to his daughter, and etc. Interesting story.
A man marries and only has one daughter. He,
And no sons?
no sons, but
Uh-huh.
only has one.